Hi, Jay Andrews here with Laguna Tools. Today we're going to set up one of our favorite lathes. This is our Revo 1524. The machine will arrive in a box just like this, and if you order accessories, oftentimes those accessories will be packaged on the same pallet. When your machine arrives, have a look over the shipment, look over the boxes themselves and see if there's any damage. In this case here, I've got a scuff over here. I've got a box that's a little wrinkled up here, and I've got a hole puncture on the bottom. It doesn't look too bad, and I'm sure that these products are probably good, but note it on the shipping receipt when your carrier has you sign the receipt, just that you have some damage on the boxes. Later in your shop, as you open up the machine and do your setup, if there's any damage to the machine or missing parts, let us know within 48 hours so we can file a claim for you. These are the accessories that we'll install after the lathe is assembled. So I'm going to set these to the side before opening up the lathe. Now that the box is open, you'll want to remove all of the pieces and components before you lift out the styrofoam. One of the most important pieces is the owner's manual. You'll refer to this during the assembly, so have this close by. Next, lift out the leg assemblies. These have a little weight to them. The next step is to get the lathe up and out of the box, and this is the heaviest portion of the lathe. The headstock is heavy, the bed is heavy, and add the tailstock on there and you've got a lot of weight. So what I find is easiest is to cut the box open, splay the box out, and then remove the tailstock, remove the headstock from the bed, lift those out individually, and then lift the bed out. Now with the box opened up, I'm going to slide the tailstock and the headstock off on this end. I'm going to score the styrofoam and then just break it away so that I can slide everything out in this position. Okay, with the styrofoam out of the way and with the tailstock exposed, I'm going to unlock the tailstock with this handle. Now this will slide back and forth. There's a pin on this end, and we'll remove the pin with an Allen wrench. Just drop the Allen wrench in. This pin is in between the bedways to keep items from sliding off the end of the lathe when it's in use. I've got that removed, and now I can slide the tailstock down and get some weight off the lathe. You may have to pull it to get it past styrofoam that's in between the bedways. Now we're getting to some heavy pieces, and the headstock is the heaviest part you're going to have to remove next to the bed. If you need some help, get some help. I'm just going to slide it off onto the cardboard for now so that I can pick up the bed and start working with it. When you go to install this on the machine, get somebody to help you lift this up so you don't throw out your back. I'm putting some gloves on because the bed is pretty greasy, and we're going to stand it up and get the styrofoam out from underneath it. Simply stand this up so you're not picking up the full weight. Pull your plastic out. Get rid of the styrofoam. And I lay it right back down because I'll do most of the work on assembly right here at the floor. Now that it's on the floor, just roll it forward and set it upside down. It makes it easy to install the legs onto the bottom of the lathe bed, and then finally I can tip it and stand it upright. I'm going to grab one of the cast iron leg assemblies. These are the same. There's a left and right on the machine, but these are both the same casting, so you can put it on either end. We're going to flip it upside down and install it on the machine. You're going to find a bag of Allen bolts with washers. Make sure that you have a lock washer first, then your flat washer, and these are going to come up from the bottom into the legs. There's also an included Allen wrench with the machine to tighten those down. Once you have the bolts installed finger tight, just make sure that everything is centered up, and then finally snug them down with the Allen wrench. Now repeat the process on the other side with the other leg. The 1524 lathe has an adjustable stand. That makes it pretty cool because when you're working on a lathe, you want to be comfortable, and you can set the height to match your height. And generally speaking, what you want to do is you want to match the spindle height with the height of your elbow. And that's a good starting position. You may want it a little higher or lower, but that's a good place to start. In my case, I'm going to look on the chart. This position is 43 inches for me. On the chart here, I can scroll over from 43 to see which holes I'll select. In this case here, with 43 selected, it looks like it's going to be holes number 9 and 11. There's 17 holes in the adjustment position, so I'm going to locate number 9 and 11, and that'll be the 2 holes that I use to put the bolts through to bolt it on the lathe. Back at the lathe, I'll have the 2 bolts ready that I'll use. You'll find a package of these in your hardware kit. There are 2 washers. One will go on the head side as you slide the bolt through. The other one will go on the nut end of this. You'll want to grab a 17mm wrench and the included Allen wrench to install these. The leg can go in 2 different directions, so you need to pay attention to make sure that it's correct. If you install it like this, the foot will be tipped outwards, and this will be the wrong way. You want this foot to be level or even with the floor. So if I turn that around, you'll see this is parallel with the floor and in the correct orientation. The other thing that I did is I put some blue tape here to mark the holes where I'm going to install this so that they're all the same. I'm on holes number 9 and 11. I've just put some blue tape there so I can quickly line that up by eyeball. And then I'll insert the bolts through. I like to put the smooth head on the outside edge here. Now that both bolts are in place, I'll cinch it down. And I'm going to repeat this process on the other side here. Now you're going to want to locate these feet. These are a nice nylon leveling feet. They have a really nice pad on the bottom so they don't scratch up your floors. There's also a washer that you'll install. Put that on first. Thread the foot on. And you can set the height with a tape measure, or you can adjust these after the fact as well. I'll get them lined up and then take a 14mm wrench and just tighten that nut down. You can hold the top of this with your hand and tighten that down. Install the other 3. Now that the leveling feet are on, it's a good time to flip the machine over and I can start sliding on some of the accessories like the headstock and tailstock. If you ordered a mobility kit with your lathe and want to install it now, it's a little bit easier to install it right now than it is once the lathe is set up. If you already have your lathe set up and you want to install a mobility kit, you've got 2 choices. Install it when it's on the ground, or slide the headstock and tailstock off, flip it over and put it on in this position. I typically find it's a little easier in this position, but you can do it either way. Now that we've got the leveling feet back on this end, that wraps up the mobility kit, and it lets us know that it's time to flip the lathe over. Now this is another area that you might want to have somebody help you. The lathe is heavy. I'm going to just tip it down and then stand it upright. That way I'm never picking up the full weight of the bed and the legs and everything. But do get a hand if you have a weak back. Now that we've got the lathe upright, it's a good time to go through and clean some of this packing grease off of here. It's pretty oily. I like a little bit of WD-40. It actually cuts the grease and it lubricates the bedways a little bit. You can finish the bedways off with one of your favorite steel or cast iron protecting sprays or waxes. But you can see how nice that cleans it right up. Now that the bed is cleaned off, it's time to install the headstock and tailstock. The headstock is the heaviest part you're going to lift. It has the motor and the cast iron portion here, so make sure somebody helps you lift it. And as you slide this in place, rest one end onto the end of the lathe, get the keyway into the center, and then watch the washer on the bottom just to make sure that it slides on evenly. You may have to move the handle slightly and wiggle it to get it slid on. Next, we're going to slide the banjo in place, and you may have to wiggle the washer and manipulate the handle a little bit. And next is the tool rest. And finally, the tailstock will slide on. Once the headstock and tailstock are in place, take the stops and insert those into the ends of the bedways here. This keeps the tailstock from sliding off the lathe if you're moving it down, and it'll prevent the headstock from sliding off on the opposite end. Now's a good time to install the tooling and accessory tray. It'll bolt onto the headstock end typically. You can bolt on the tailstock end. It goes into the end of the cast iron legs. There are two button head Allen head bolts and washers. And once those are installed, just tighten them down a little bit. And now you can install some of the tooling for the lathe in this bracket. Now we're ready to slide the headstock back into its position, tighten it down. The Revo lathes come with a 3-inch faceplate, and this threads right onto the headstock spindle. And you can actually tighten it down using the Tommy bar that's included and the spindle lock on the front. Just push that down, tighten it down. Once that's in place, you can then tighten the set screw to retain it so it doesn't spin off. Next, you're going to find your live center and spur drive. These are stored conveniently in a bracket here on the tailstock. When you go to use those, just simply pull those out. The live center will insert into the tailstock and the spur drive over at the headstock. With the spur drive and the live center installed and the headstock locked down, we can slide the tailstock forward and then crank the quill in just to check the alignment of the lathe. Quite often these are dead on from the factory, just as this one is, but should you need to adjust it, you can adjust it using the precise point mechanism on the lathe. Let me show you how that works. You'll back off the tailstock and then grab an Allen wrench. Loosen the 4 screws on the tailstock. Once these are loosened, it'll give you the opportunity to position the exact placement of the tailstock center. And you'll match it up with the headstock on the live center and drive center. Once those are precisely set, you'll come back in and tighten this down. The Laguna Revo lathes all have electronic speed control, which is a fantastic feature. You don't want to rely on this solely when you're setting your speeds. They also have stepped pulleys inside, and this one has got a 3-step pulley. You're going to use these pulleys to get it in the correct range and then fine-tune it with the electronic speed control. If you're slow turning a bowl, you'll want to set it on the slow range and then use the speed control. If you're doing pins and bottle stoppers and things that you can spin real fast, go ahead and move it to the high speed portion, and then you can crank the speed. Let me show you how to change the belt from pulley to pulley. Correct. Right now it's on the left-hand side. I'm going to loosen the lock handle, lift up the motor, and then tighten that again to hold it in the up position, and that's taking the tension off the belt. Now you'll go through and slide the top portion of the belt over, and then move the bottom portion over on the lower pulley. Once those are lined up, just give them a quick pull, and then tighten the belt. Spin it by hand using the hand wheel on the outside. Now you're ready to go. You can shut the cover. This is a magnetic catch, by the way, that holds this cover shut. And you have the speed range on each pulley on the outside. One of the included tools with the lathe is this knockout bar, and a knockout bar is used to remove the spur drive from the headstock. This end is really sharp, so when you're knocking this out, just be careful you don't spear your hand with it. Feed this through the headstock, line it up, and just give it a quick wrap. That'll knock out your spur drive, and you can store it over the tailstock. One of the accessories that comes with the lathe is this bracket, and it's actually used to mount one of the optional work lights. The back of the headstock is pre-drilled and tapped to accept the screws that come with this bracket. And you can install this now. Even if you're not putting the light on now, you may find other uses for this bracket. If you are installing a light, it'll be ready to go when you get the lamp. Okay, that's the last of the 4 screws for this bracket. You can use this for a lot of different things. You can store tools in it and so forth if you need to, or put other accessories on it. We've designed this to take our lamps. We have both halogen lights and LED lights. Let's go ahead and install the lamp now. We have a few different lamps that are available. This is one of our LED lights. I like the LED lights because they're so universal. You can use them on the lathe or other machines inside the shop. The bracket here for the lamp can screw into a workbench, it can screw onto a wall or into various Laguna Tools machines. It's supplied with a clamp-on bracket that you can use to clamp it to the edge of a workbench or a door if you need to. It also comes with a adapter plug, and the reason that it comes with this adapter plug is it can run on a variety of voltages. Inside the lamp there is a driver that will accept 110 volt or 220 volt. It comes with a 110 volt plug, and you can plug it right into 110 volt and use it. You can also plug it directly into 220, and the driver inside will make the switch to 220, but you'll need an adapter. This is a 220 volt outlet, and you can just plug the adapter into the plug and plug that into 220 volt. For the Revo lathe, it'll run on 110 volt. There's a 110 volt outlet on the lathe, so we'll just bolt this to the lathe using the factory supplied hardware. This LED lamp is one of my favorite accessories, and one of the things that makes it so useful is how adjustable it is. You can adjust it with the knobs, you can swivel it and pivot the lamp to get it exactly where you need it. The lamp also has a few controls that are very, very useful. Right up here on the arm, you can increase and decrease brightness, and you can also do color correction to make the light warmer or cooler. If you're trying to match a finish or get some color correction onto your workpiece here, just adjusting this knob makes that super easy. The Revo 1524 has got great capacity. You can turn 15-inch diameter bowls or platters, and you can do spindles that are 24 inches long. But what if you needed a little more length or a little more diameter capacity? Well, we've got an extension that'll handle that. On the end of the bed insert the 3 bolts that come with the extension. You're going to leave these loose, and the extension will install right on the end of the lathe bed. You'll want to remove the stop pin as well, and we'll move that out to the end of the extension. Now that those are loose, let me grab the Allen wrench, take this out, and get the extension on. I'm going to install the 20-inch extension on the outside edge of the bed. I've already installed the pin on the end. Right now it's just hanging loose. I'm going to go through and tighten up the bolts and then just adjust this to where it's level with the main bed. One tip that you can use to level it off is to slide the tailstock down so it spans the gap, and as you tighten it, it'll level both the extension and the bed together. Once it's tightened down, you can slide the tailstock away. Now with the bed extension tightened up and in place, I can slide the tailstock down to the end. This gives me a total of 44 inches between centers, and that'll handle many stair spindles, furniture parts, and things like that. If you needed to go a little bit longer, you can take another one of these extensions and bolt it on the headstock side to push the headstock out. And within the same leg footprint, you can have a lot longer turnings. I've moved the bolts down, and now I'm repositioning the extension. When the extension is at the end of the bed, it'll give you more length on the lathe. When you install it low on the leg, it lets you reposition your banjo and your tool rest so that you can do outboard turning, and this will allow you to do larger diameter pieces. You'll remove the tailstock off of the bed and slide the banjo off and position the banjo on the outboard extension, and then slide the headstock down, set the headstock right here, and turn larger diameter pieces. Let me move these down and show you how those mount up. The extension kit comes with a tool rest riser, and this will swivel onto the existing banjo, and it gives you the ability to go through and move the tool rest back up to the center line of the lathe. Now this can be positioned for all kinds of projects, large bowls, platters, whatever you've got. Lock that down, and then you can swivel this into and out of the way. The sliding headstock is really a superior way to do outboard turning. There's some on the market where the headstock goes forward, but you lose your positioning and your indexing. In this case here, it stays right in the same ways on the bed that mount the headstock and lock it in place. With the headstock overhanging the outboard edge here, I have a tool rest, I have larger capacity. And this will give you larger capacity, longer length on the lathe, and let you do a wider range of work. Well, now we've completed all the steps for the assembly of the Revo lathe. We've installed the accessories. Now I've plugged the lathe in. Let's go ahead and turn it on, fire it up, and just go through a few control operations here with you. The first thing you want to do is check to make sure that the switch on the back of the lathe is on. That's going to illuminate the digital readout on the front side here. And then to turn the lathe on, just push the start switch. You can see it's operating at pretty slow speeds here. I can use the variable speed control right here, and that'll spin it up. If I want to change directions and go from forward to reverse, I'll just stop the lathe, flick it to reverse, and start it back up. You can control the speed, again, with the belt or with the speed control. And with the forward and reverse, it lets you do sanding and other types of turning that you may not be able to do with just a single direction. Now, if you have any questions on the lathe, feel free to give us a call. Watch a few of our videos as we cover different elements of this lathe as well. You can reach us on the web at lagunatools.com or by phone at 800-234-1976.